Hello everyone, it's Lindsay and I am back with another process video using the Living Water devotional kit from By the Well for God, and I'm working on day 3 of this kit. I will link my unboxing down below if you want to see everything that comes in the kit. We're going to use a whole bunch of stamps. Most of these are stamps that you can buy in addition to the kit to add in. They were out of stock but are being restocked, so I'll be sure to link those down below for you guys. And I'm going to create a little shaker pocket for my entry. I had created a shaker pocket in my last Bible, and I'm in a new Bible now, and so I thought I'd go ahead and create something similar for this one. So I'm taking a whole bunch of the fish and things like that from the stamp sets and stamping them onto a separate piece of cardstock. And I am using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a permanent pigment ink. And this is, I believe, 65-pound white cardstock. So it's a little heavy, but not too bad. I didn't want to add too much bulk with the shaker pocket. If you get too much stuff in there and too many different layers, it just is way too chunky. So we're going to keep it kind of similar. But by stamping them off on here, I'm going to create my own little die cuts. Now there are die cut pieces included in the kit that you could use for this, but I wanted to kind of color things the colors that I wanted and just spend some time thinking about the devotional content while I'm coloring this in. So added in some seashells also. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit this with my heat tool to make sure it's good and dry. It is a pigment ink, so it takes a little bit longer to dry than regular ink. And I'm going to go in and color these images with my Faber-Castell brush markers. I will insert a color swatch chart over on my blog. If you're curious what colors I pulled to match this kit, I will have that over there. And so I just picked a bunch of different colors from that color swatch, and this allows for super quick coloring in these images. They are pretty small with a lot of detail, but you're able to use the finer tip of these big brush markers to color them in. So I'm going to go through that. I am working in John chapter 4, first part of chapter 4, where it is the story about the Samaritan woman that Jesus meets at the well, and where he kind of engages in a conversation with her and introduces this idea of living water. And so this whole kit is focusing on stories and things like that, where it's mentioned water and living water and things like that in the Bible. So there is a lot to this particular story, so I'd encourage you to grab the Blue Letter Bible app and read commentary. As you study that passage, there's a lot of things. You're seeing Jesus, is human and he becomes tired, so he has to take a break, and he engages with this woman. It's the middle of the day. A lot of Bible scholars believe that, most of the women are out getting water early in the morning, but this is about noon, and she's out there probably because she's an outcast and can't be around the regular women. It's not typical for a man of that time to engage in speaking with a woman on their own, and so that is a little bit different here, where Jesus is actually acknowledging her and engaging her in a conversation, and then he introduces this idea of living water, and he's offering something that will sustain her for eternity and not just for a little while. So I would definitely encourage you to read through that and grab some commentary and read, so you have a better understanding of everything that's going on in that passage. But here on screen, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the shaker pocket portion, and so I'm going to do some detail on the outside. And what this is just some plastic packaging that some like die cuts or something came in, and we're going to create like textured sand. So I have some texture paste, and I'm just mixing it with some Faber-Castell brush markers on a Bible mat, and this is going to tint that texture paste. I know I'll get questions about if you can use modeling paste versus texture paste. And texture paste is a little more flexible than some of the other pastes out there, and so this will allow this to stay on the outside of this tip-in and not crack as much as some of the other pastes. So you do want to reach for the texture paste for this. And I'm just using a palette knife to thinly spread some of that on the outside of this packaging. And this packaging has like a little adhesive flap, and that is at the top of this pocket. Here are some little texture sand pieces from Bria Reese. I found this at Hobby Lobby, and you can tint this, color it, add it to paint. I'm adding it to this texture paste like sand, and so once I sprinkle that on there, I'm going to take my finger and just kind of push it down into the texture paste. That way it is good and set in there, and that way I don't have anything kind of flaking off and doing weird stuff in my Bible once it's dry. So I did go ahead and set that aside to air dry. I didn't want to use my heat tool because it might melt the plastic pocket. So it just took a few hours to dry, and then now we can go ahead and start adding things to the inside of the pocket. So I have a variety of sequins and glitters, and I'm just trying to be careful to not get it too full because I do still want to be able to close my Bible. And so these are just a few different sizes. Now, the finer glitter may have a tendency to come out of your pocket or fall out of your pocket if you don't get the top adhered very well. So if you want to avoid mess, then just stick with bigger things like sequins for your filler. This here is like some confetti, and this is going to be all ocean. So I picked blues and teals and greens and that little bit of gold. And this is going to be like the water. I'm going to go ahead and link my other video down below where I did a shaker pocket for the Goals with Grace devotional kit from Illustrated Faith. That was a little bit bigger of a pocket and did it a little bit differently, so you can check that out. So now I'm going to put my fish in there, but I realized if I just stick them in there, they're going to kind of be upside down and all over the place. So I'm going to first run them through my Xyron sticker maker, and this adds a layer of adhesive to the entire backside of these die cuts, and then they kind of become like stickers. And since that pocket is see-through, you can see the front and the back. By coating it all in adhesive, it's a lot harder to see the adhesive through the plastic. So now that it has the adhesive on there, I can go ahead and stick these on the inside of the pocket and permanently adhere them in the pocket. So while everything else can shake and move, all the sequins can move around, those fish are inside the pocket, but they're not going to get hung up at the bottom or get turned upside down. This just kind of keeps them where they belong. The sequins do kind of cover them up. If I was to do this again, I think I would have run them through backwards so that the adhesive would be on the front of the fish and adhere them onto the front inside part of the pocket, if that makes sense. So then the sequins would move behind them, but that's okay. This is some Martha Stewart fine glitter. This does kind of get everywhere, so just beware. I think I had a tip Tuesday a while back about using Swiffer dusting cloths to pick up glitter and things like that on your surface, and that really helps. I will link those down below if you're interested in that. So I'm just making sure everything moves around and it's going to work. It's full enough that, you know, it's a shaker pocket, but not too overly full. And then I decide to add in these starfish and the little snail. They are just going to be loose. They can kind of float around in there. And then we can seal this up. So like I said, it's a flap that folds over and it has adhesive on one part. So I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive right where the opening is and then on the end of the flap. I just wanted double, like a backup, I guess, for adhesive, just to make sure that nothing opened up and came out or anything like that. So I think this particular packaging was from something that came from Felicity Jane, and so it's a really good, strong plastic. It doesn't seem super flimsy, so I think this will hold up pretty well. And I can see everything floats around and jiggles around in there, but the fish stay upright and where they need to be. So then I can go ahead and adhere the shells and the little crab on the front of the shaker pocket. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking this is a lot of work, and what is this for? And it is a lot of work, and there really isn't a purpose other than when things like this take a little bit longer. It allows you more time to be thinking about the verse and just spending time in prayer and reflection all the while I'm putting these together. So it just kind of forces me to spend more time in this particular passage in the Bible. So So I set that shaker pocket aside, and now we're going to do the background of the page. So I prepped the background of the page with my EK6S powder tool, and I'm pulling out this large living water stamp. This is the one that comes with the kit. I'm going to ink it up with some Versamark ink. That's a clear sticky ink because I'm going to heat emboss this image. So my Bible is brand new, so there's only a few entries, but I'm just sticking a stamp block behind the page just to make sure I get a really good impression, because this is a large stamp. So I'm going to keep that just to the margin because I'm going to heat emboss it with some white embossing powder, and that is opaque, so it will cover up the text. If you wanted to do this over the text, you could do it with clear embossing powder and get a similar effect. It's just not quite as vibrant as the white. And now I can just go ahead and tap off all of the excess embossing powder and then heat set that embossing powder. If you have questions about heat embossing, I recently did a Tip Tuesday video all about embossing in your Bible and the products to use and tips and tricks for it and all that goodness. So I will link that down below also. And so now I'm going to go ahead and add some watercolors. So I have my Kuretake Gansai Tombi watercolors, and I'm going to spray those down and just use a variety of blues and greens and teals to create kind of a water effect on the background here. So I did go ahead and also spray the page first. That way the paint kind of moves and blends better. And it just seems to work a lot easier that way if the page is wet first. So I'm going to do kind of an ombre effect here where it's darker at the bottom and lighter at the top like it is in the ocean. And so this will be what's kind of peeking behind the shaker tip-in once I put that in there. By adding the darker color towards the bottom also helps that embossed image kind of pop out, and you're able to see that. So once it all dries, you'll be able to see a little better how that white stands out against all of these kind of ocean colors in the background here. My page is not prepped. There's nothing on it, and it works totally fine. So I did go ahead and let that just sit and dry, added a few splatters. I didn't want to heat set it because it would reactivate that embossing and it would get kind of funky. So you do want to just set it aside and let it air dry. And then now we can go ahead and insert the tip-in. So I'm adding some of that double-sided adhesive to the back edge of this piece, and then I can just stick this right down into the center of my Bible. And so this particular packaging fits in there perfectly to where you can still see that stamped living water stamp, and then you just have this fun little piece in there without covering any of the text. This fabric clippy and this cardstock tabby came with the kit, so I'm just retying this clippy just a little bit differently, and kind of my preference for these. And I'll go ahead and add that to the top. And I'll just go ahead and create a little clustering up at the top here with some tabs. I'm using the little faux washi strips that come with the kit. And by adding this to the page first, it just kind of strengthens the page underneath these paper clippies. That way your page doesn't get torn. And I'll add some adhesive to the clippy, and this one also kind of helps hold that tip in place so it's not flopping all over the place while I'm flipping through my Bible. I went ahead and added some journaling for this passage, and that is it for the entry today. So if you have questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you were inspired. Check out the description box and my blog for more close-up pictures and links to all the products mentioned, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.